Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session on business networking made easy. Arunima has asked me not to ask her how she's doing because she doesn't know how to answer the question. So let's ask Arunima how she's doing. How are you doing, Arunima?
I'm well, thank
You're wearing a
you.
very nice jacket.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's get started with this very interesting subject of business networking made easy, right? I'm hoping that a lot of y'all are taking this subject pretty late in the day, which means if you're taking a gold plan, I hope it's coming on later. If you're taking a platinum plan, I hope it's coming on later in the day because business networking is a subject that comes after, in a way, your core communication skills, right? Which where you've really mastered, in a way, your day-to-day verbal communications. You've understood how to do business communication overall. You've gotten better at your written communication. You've gotten better at presenting. You've gotten better at your conversational skills. You've gotten better at handling critical conversations, giving feedback to people. You got your body language in place. You've learned to be a good listener, so you've got all those things in place. And now you want to go out and network with people within your company and outside. So that's where this subject comes in, and that's where we're going to help you out with this subject. I'm very excited about talking about this subject to you today. So let's head straight into how to do business networking better. Okay, so let's understand what is business networking to start with. Business networking is the process of establishing and cultivating and maintaining mutually beneficial relationships with other people, potential clients, and customers. I think this is the key word, right? Mutually beneficial relationships, right? So business networking is, people often think of business networking as they always picture some kind of a party that is going on where a man or woman that is supposed to be a good business networker is schmoozing through that party with a glass of wine or whiskey or a cocktail and like making conversation and being the life of a party. And we often think of those people as being good business networkers, but that's not really true, right? There are lots of business networkers that don't fit the stereotype that I just painted out to you, and yet are amazing, at business networking. I know so many people that are amazing at business networking that you would define as in a way total introverts. They're not extroverted in any way. They don't really like interacting with a lot of people, and yet they're very, very good at business networking, right? So don't get caught up in the stereotype. Don't get caught up in your thoughts and current beliefs around this subject. Business networking is nothing but the process of establishing and cultivating and maintaining mutually beneficial relationships. So I think this is the key word, right? Relationships. That's what makes it much easier than thinking of it as networking. In simple words, business networking refers to building relationships with people of similar interests or those who might help you in your business goals, right? So that's, I think, why business networking is possibly a little different from a regular friendship that you have. Is when you build relationships at the workplace or workplace related, you always hope that they're going to benefit you in some career, work, or business context. Often when you just have friends, you of course hope that those friends will help you, be there for you in a social or a personal context. But in business networking or business relationships, you hope that they will, or you aspire in some way that they're going to help you in those situations. So that's, in a way, how your relationships at work are different from your relationships at in your personal life. And if you're a good business networker, you're good at maintaining mutually beneficial relationships. That's as simply what it is, right? So very quickly, before we go on to the rest of the subject, just to jog your mind a little, pause the video here and make a note of saying, why is it important for you to network effectively, right? This is just to jog your mind a little. So pause here and make a note of your answers before you go on. Okay, now, um, the importance of business networking. It provides you with professional mentors, contacts who can assist you with business problems you might need help with. This is like very, very underrated, right? So if you have a good business network, it can help you with those business problems. A very nice quote that says, a person's mind stretched by a new idea never goes back to its original dimension. Sometimes if you have a good network, I think just one or two ideas are enough for you to for it to make a big difference to you, right? I keep telling Arunima, I think I'm not great at business networking. I could get a lot better. I possibly would get a lot better if I had more time at my disposal, but I think I'm okay at it. Um, but a key thought in my mind was put by somebody that I wouldn't call my mentor, but somebody who's always been my well-wisher, who was my ex boss's husband. And he, of course, put this thought in my mind very early on when I started work better, about something on the lines of um, uh, productizing what you have. That's the way to scale up your business. And that one idea was enough for me, and made so much of a difference to the way I ran work better. If I didn't have that one idea that he gave me from a dinner that all of us went to together, I would have done things totally differently at work better, right? So having that, having a good business network really helps you in kind of business problems and situations you're in. For those of y'all who seek employment, it gives you access to job opportunities if you have a good network. Creates opportunities to pitch your product and service and create visibility for your brand or business. So this, as a freelancer, as an entrepreneur, as somebody that works in the sales department, this could be very important for you if you know how to network. And of course allows you to create awareness and keep abreast with the latest trends in your industry, right? So that's again where it really helps if you're good at business networking. Okay, now business networking can take two forms, right? So one is nurturing existing relationships or networks, and number two, expanding your networks by building new connects, right? Now, in this session, we will primarily focus on how to nurture existing relationships and networks. Most people think that expanding their network and contact lists is the focus of networking. However, what is more important is nurturing and strengthening existing relationships with existing contacts, right? I think this is very, very, very important. When Arunima and myself were discussing this content and working on this content together, it was almost like an epiphany, almost like a thought that came to my mind, where I told her that, like, this is almost entirely the game of business networking, while most people think that this is the game, right? Most people think that they need to expand their network. And I was telling her that, this is where the game lies, but that's the biggest mistake that people make. Now, why is it that that is where the game lies, right? So I was giving her a simple example. I'm going to draw here to the side, right? Where I did my MBA from a reasonably good college, Symbiosis SIBM, right? It was a 2-year course. Okay. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in my batch itself, I had, like, in my year, the people that joined at the same time, I have probably had, I think, 120 to 150 people that were there. So when I was in my first year, there were 120 to 150 seniors that I had. And then when I went to the second year, there are 120 to 150 juniors that I had, right? So if I look at the amount of people that I, in a way, have some kind of a connect with, I didn't have a deep relationship, neither probably did I know the names of all these people, right? But I knew a whole lot of people then. I have close to 450 people that I came in touch with in some way or the other, during my just doing my MBA, right? And then, of course, I graduated. You have your network from school, you have your family network, you have your, depending on where you stay, you have your, your neighbors or people in your society, right? So look at this: your family network can be so big, your school existing network can be so big, your 11th 12th, your graduation network, there's just so many people there. If you did your post graduation, there are just so many people that you came in touch with them, right? Now, when I was doing my MBA, since I again went to a reasonably good school and it was a long time back that I did my MBA, now most of these people are in relatively, I wouldn't say most of these people, right? A whole lot of these people are in, I would say, important positions, right? Some of them in HR, they're in important positions, some of them in marketing, some of them probably are entrepreneurs, right? So many of them are in important positions. Um, and if I were to take networking much more seriously than I do, it wouldn't be about going and trying to establish new contacts. That would be stupid for me. It would, what would be important for me is to try to go to these contacts, or my family contacts or my school contacts, and really nurture those relationships in a much better way, so they can be mutually beneficial for us, right? Hopefully they should be able to gain something from me and I should be able to gain something from them. That should happen. So, but the mistake everybody makes is they think that, okay, I need to go and I need to expand my network, and that is what networking is about, and that's why they get so uncomfortable around the entire topic of networking, right? um, so the bottom line here is, you have a huge network of people already which is around you. If you are smart, you will go about trying to nurture those relationships more, instead of trying to create and build new connects which you may think is important, right? I want to kind of just give me a minute. I want to give you examples of where else you can look for your network. Okay, so let's build some more ideas around this thing. Let's build some ideas here. Arunima, can you see the screen? A blank screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so let's look for a few ideas of how you can go about networking in a way which is mutually beneficial relationships, right? That's what we're trying to look at. Mutually beneficial relationships. Okay, so number one place that you can look at is your existing and extended family, right? Which is look at it from your first cousins, your second cousins, your uncles, right? So much of we ignore our existing like family connects. There are just so many people that we could connect with much better. In India, it's so easy for us to connect with them, right? You definitely have your network from school, right? And in today's day and age, it's so easy to identify people, get in touch with people over social media. That's where you can use social media very well. You don't even need to go to new people. Then often, depending on where you went, you have your 11 12 standard. For me, that was a different college, so many people from here. Then your graduation, right? If you do your post graduation, right, and then it's possibly the companies that you work in, right? So if you work for, say, if you work for 2 or 3 companies, you have your network from each one of those things. Right now, in addition to that, you have your friends of friends, right? That could be a network which is there immediately. Your friends of friends, immediate, like your close friends and their friends. So that's a huge network in itself, right? So just look at the kind of quantum of a network that you can have immediately, and each one of these people can help you in some way or the other in your career work. Arunima, does anything else come to your mind that you think I've missed out on in terms of?
No, I just, again, just looking at this list, I can
Yeah,
think of my own
yeah,
schoolmates or friends. So I've
yeah,
got someone who's now a lawyer, someone
yeah.
who's a CA,
Mm,
right? Someone who's a doctor. So it's just, we are always looking at expanding, like we said, expanding our network, but you don't realize that you've got so many people around you that you can
yeah,
already
yeah,
leverage.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, and just to add to what you say, right, Arunima, and this is something again we were having a discussion on this, which is very interesting. That if you create and nurture relationships well, right? Let's assume
Mhm.
that you nurture. I'm just putting a number of say 15 to 20, like
Yep.
very strong relationships. What tends to
Correct.
happen is you get access to their network
Yep.
then, right, of probably 15 to 20. Can you look at that ripple effect that happens,
Yep.
right? That means that if you have somebody here and you need a favor from this person in a way reaches out to his network and in turn can help you out with something, because that's what you're looking for in the end, right? um,
Correct.
what you're looking for from networking in the way is some sort of help, right? It's not help, oh, I'm burning in fire, please help me. Even that could be like some kind of help that's there, but just help, whether it's getting business help, whether it's getting an investor on board help, whether it's looking for a new job help as far as knowledge is concerned, right? So that's what you're looking for. You need to give them some help and you need to get some help in return, and that's what business networking is about. So again, coming to this entire myth that we have of trying to look for new people, nurture this existing whatever this number can be, and you will get access and it'll be a huge ripple effect to all their networks. And that is something which is extremely strong in nature, right? Now let me give you Arunima's example, because we were discussing this earlier, right? So Arunima was saying that, okay, you know what, Arunima said, I'm bad at networking, right? And we were just discussing whether I am bad, she's bad, how good or bad are we. But we she ended up saying that, okay, you know what, I had this one connection that I had a strong relationship with that would help me out with this thing, right? So I think what Arunima does very well is she builds very strong connects with different people. And if she needs something or she needs some help on something, she can reach out to those people that are more than willing to then reach out to their contacts to get her the help that she needs, right? And I think that's networking in itself. And you don't really need to then go beyond your existing network, right, Arunima?
I'd like to
Yes,
add, yeah,
yes, go on.
and another, so one sort of eye
Please come
opener,
on
like
screen, Arunima. The audience would they're tired of just seeing me on screen.
my network is a little spotty,
No
so
problem, go on.
okay. So one eye opener was, of course, the idea of strengthening your existing networks rather
Yeah,
than trying to expand it, right? The
yeah,
second eye opener was networking. Again, to me, I always assumed it's this big, like you said, like the going to an event and kind of building contacts. It's just knowing people who know people who can help you, or
yeah,
you knowing people who can help you, right? That's all it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Which is why if you just kind of evaluate, literally, I think, and something you said, that you literally put together an Excel sheet,
yeah,
make a list of all the people who you currently know in your both professional and personal life,
yeah,
identify what roles they play professionally, or
yeah,
they may have personal contacts themselves,
yeah,
and that's it. You may not even have to build a network beyond that, because your existing one is itself so strong.
yeah, yeah,
um, and like for me, again, because it's helped me so many times in
yeah,
the past without me realizing that, oh, I was actually leveraging my network.
yeah,
Because I would, like you said, I would just mention that, oh, this is something I want to get done, and
yeah,
they would just do it,
yeah,
right? And it's
yeah,
because I had a network who could get something done for me.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was a really big eye opener for me.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, Arunima, people often talk about or want to send their children to relatively good educational institutes is often they say that, oh, you know what, it's the network that they will build there,
Correct.
and that network is more priceless than anything else, right? So that's sometimes the argument against online education versus actually going to college or for a post graduation degree, right?
Correct.
Because you end up building a network that both teaches you and that you can in a way use for life. So this is
Correct.
not for people that know about this subject. This is not a new idea for them, right? Now another kind of example that I'd like to give you is uh, we spoke about this idea of building relationships, right? And building relationships is if you have to boil it down to one thing, building relationships is about offering help,
Yep.
right, in some form or the other, or being of use to another person in some form or the other, right? It's literally, you need to think like that Vodafone ad in a way. How can I help you, right? What can I do for you? How can I help you? And that's the heart of nurturing relationships. We're going to take you through a lot of stuff, but it all boils down to that thing in the end of saying that how can you help people? Because if you go about helping people or your network, at some point of time when you need help, they'll be ready to help you, which is the principle of reciprocity. And some of the best kind of politicians, right? Like Arun Jaitley, the late Arun Jaitley was known to be a brilliant networker, and he had basically good relationships across all political parties, right? And for anybody that knew that kind of thing more closely, that's because he would constantly look for ways in which he could help people. And what that would mean is, very often, because I've read a lot about him, right? If he met somebody, he would definitely think, oh, how can I be of some help to this person? And he would say, oh, this is the business that you're in. Okay, let's assume that he's a writer, right? He's meeting a writer, an aspiring author. So he would be like, oh, so you're a writer, so have you published anything? And that person would be like, oh no, I haven't really published anything. So do you have a book which is ready? So he'd say, yeah, I'm writing, I'm almost on my final chapter of it. He'd say, oh, great, I know these two or three publishers. um, Let me put you in touch with those two or three publishers, right? Let me do that for you. And then that person be like, yeah, and he'd be like, yeah, let me do that for you, right? And he would actually follow up on that and put that person in touch with those two or three people. And when
Correct.
he would do that, that writer would be indebted to him for life, and he, with one interaction, became part of his network. Just one interaction, indebted for life, and became part of his network, all on the simple principle of saying, how can I help you, right? What can I do for you? And if you think on those lines, it's so win-win, right? Because everybody wins in this situation. That person wins, Arun Jaitley wins, or a person like Arun Jaitley wins, and of course, hopefully, the book publisher wins as well, right? And it could be the opposite. Maybe he's at a party with a book publisher, and he'd be like, oh, are you guys looking for authors? I have these two or three people, I just read something, and I should put you guys in touch. And that's about it. He just puts them in touch, and that's that, right? And most of us, again, look at it very, very differently. And then what happens as a result of that, Arunima, which is quite nice, is the reason why the networker gets the image of, oh, going for a lot of parties and schmoozing with a drink, is because when the person is gone about helping people, a lot of people, when they have a social occasion, they want to call you, right? And they want to call you for it, and
Correct.
then you go for that, and then they try to introduce you to other people or try to help you in some other way. So your network, in a way, has a snowballing positive effect, right? Where it keeps getting better and better and better and better and better, right? And this is what everyone does, and that's why he was supposed to be like a legendary networker and could really get stuff done in the capital city of India.
So I have one point to add. I
Yeah,
think building relationships is a combination of two things. It's your
yeah,
principle of reciprocity and it's
yeah,
your principle of liking.
yeah,
And if you do both of these two things well, where you're always seeking out to help someone and you're always nice to people, or you
yeah,
can make them like you,
yeah.
you're done because you've built relationships. That's all you need to do, I think.
Absolutely. And the two principles that she's referring to, if you want to know more about them, you need to go through our class on the six principles of influence. It's a brilliant class that we've done that will help you out. Hopefully that's part of your package. But yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so, what I want to, in a way, do through this class is remove the one stigma around business networking, right? Because there's also a lot of stigma attached to that, around the smooth talker kind of thing, right? So there's a stigma attached to that, and in a way, very often when stigma is attached to things, there's also fear attached to it, right? Saying, oh, I want to do it, I want to build good relationships, but I don't know how. Go with the principle of trying to help people. Go with the principle of trying to build relationships with people. You will be a great networker. You don't need to do anything beyond that, right? And there are a million ways in which to help people, and we'll get to it as we go along with this, right? Now, how to network better. The first thing to remember is, if you want to network in a very focused way, um, it's always nice to have clear outcomes of what you want to get out of networking, right? Because if you're going to devote a certain amount of time into networking, you need to know what the outcome is going to be, right? Now, what could your networking goals be around, right? So, very often, like your networking goals could be around to build a good working relationships with stakeholders in order to get your work done quickly, right? Now, what do I mean here is this is more to do with networking within your office, okay, plus with the stakeholders at work that you deal with, right? Like your vendors, sometimes it could be your customers as well, right? So these kind of the stakeholders that you deal with within office could be your peers, could be your boss plus super boss, right? And the reason why you need to have a good network across your offices and these stakeholders is that you get good at getting your work done. It's that simple. And I'd give this example, and this may be true more for slightly large people that work in larger organizations. People that work in larger organizations, they have systems, right? Computers, and in turn, they'll always have IT problems, right? Okay. The bigger the organization, the more the IT problems. Now, every company will have their IT teams that are always overloaded and stressed out, right? They have too much of work. Always. I've always seen that situation. Now, whether your work gets done with preference um, depends on whether you have managed to build a great relationship or network well with the IT team within your company. If you have not done that, your work will often be the last one on the radar. But if you have managed to build a great relationship, network well, you'd often get that slight preference that you need when things get difficult, right? So that's what I mean by to get your work done quickly. The more senior you go within organization, you need to have a network with all. You need to have great relationships across all departments, because very often to get a proposal through, you will need to have the buy-in of so many of these departments. Now, if you don't have great relationships across the board, sometimes your proposal will be put out only because of ego problems, and you may say that's not fair, but that's how the world operates, right? So that's why you need to be clear that, okay, I need to build relationships within my office because I want my work to get done, right? I want to get results from my customer and my company, and that's why it's important, right? If you want to start networking in a very focused way, one of the reasons could be that, okay, I want to network because I want to meet and learn more about the industry, about things outside your area of expertise, right? For example, connecting with an influencer in your industry to learn about best practices, right? So it could be that you know that, okay, I want to kind of meet people, so I want to learn. It could be within the department, right? I want to learn different things about how finance works, right, in my company, and that will help me kind of get the work done better. Or sometimes your objective could be to meet, for if you're an entrepreneur for that matter, right? Maybe you want to share notes with another entrepreneur and learn with him, or share notes with a much more successful entrepreneur who could teach you a few things about what you could do right? So that could be another kind of goal that is there, right? To learn more. Your objective could be to generate more business opportunities, right? So this could be for somebody in sales to get more leads, connecting with a potential. So if you're in one of those roles as a freelancer entrepreneur or somebody in sales where you need to get more business, be clear that, okay, this is the objective that I have for networking, and then I'm going to go about doing it in that way. And of course, for work and career opportunities, for example, you may want to gain visibility in your organization for an advancement or promotion opportunity, or meet potential employers, right? So that could be the other reason why you're going about networking. So be clear about what your reasons are to start with, of why you want to network, right? Because if you're aimless in terms of what your broad reasons are, you won't be good at networking. Now, I want to mention something important here. Just because you come up with these outcomes that you're looking for doesn't mean that these outcomes will happen every time or with all people. Sometimes with a certain person, you may think that a outcome may come out of it, right? For example, you may go into a discussion with somebody saying that I want to learn something from this person, and maybe the person says that, oh, you know what, we should actually do a joint venture on something, right? And now you didn't go into that discussion expecting an idea of a joint venture to come between you and that person. Maybe you went into that discussion saying that, hey, you know what, I just wanted to understand how you do your stuff, but that person probably saw some synergies between your business and their business, and he said, hey, you know, why can't we think of doing something like that? And that's something that you can't plan for, right? That's where you need to allow serendipity to play its role in some way. That's where you need to allow luck to play its role in some way, right? There's a very nice quote that says luck is being prepared when the opportunity comes, right? So you also need to be prepared for that. But my whole point is, you may define your networking goal in whatever way, and in turn pursue the people that will help you meet the goal. But life is such that in a lot of cases that won't end up playing out in that kind of a way, right? And you should be flexible enough, open minded enough to allow the other opportunities to seep in sometimes that you wouldn't be, right? Yes, Arunima.
Swapnil, would you say networking is a bit of a gamble?
I, uh, gamble is a word that has a bit of a negative connotation to it.
Hmm.
So let's use the word. There's a whole lot of luck that is involved in networking, right? Because you can't. Okay, let's go back to the discussion I was having, right? So I was telling you that often I struggle with networking. I don't think I'm totally bad at it, but I could get much better, because I look at everything like an Excel sheet, right? So if I'm looking at my classmates from college, right, and if I have to, in my mind, networking is saying, oh, I need to put them all on an Excel sheet and then actually go about building relationships with them in a solid way. And that's, unless your job, if you're in certain areas where your job requires that, right, it's not something which is possible, because there is so much of serendipity that is involved
Mhm.
in networking. There is so much of a luck factor that is involved in it, right? Where you could step into a discussion, you know, meet
Mhm.
somebody for a certain thing, you know, for a different thing altogether, and that could turn out to be, you know, a different discussion there from there on, right? And that's in every situation, yeah. For example, you may one of my
Correct.
friends that was an entrepreneur shared this with me in jest, right? She said, you know, every time I go for a date, of Tinder or a shadi.com or something, every time I go out to meet somebody, if I know that on a romantic front nothing is working out, I often look at the discussion and think, okay, can I hire this person, or can I do business with this person in some way, right? Now she's not entered that discussion for a, you know, from a business point of view. She's entered it for a, you know, potential partner, potential romantic relationship. But if she knows that's out of the way, she's saying, okay, how else can we mutually benefit each other, right? So yes, there is a certain amount of that luck or
Correct.
gambling which is involved in it, right? Yes, so define your network. Now,
Mhm.
if you're going to take networking seriously, note down what your potential reasons are for networking, right? Why do you want to network? Because let's assume you're a doctor attending this particular session. Maybe you have your practice which is there already, right? And maybe the reason why you don't want a job of networking, but for you, probably networking is about increasing your social circle so that you can learn more about what the best practices are in your industry, right? What are other people doing to manage their clinic in a much better way? So that could be your objective. Or possibly you have some ambition of doing good for the medical society, so you want to get on some medical panels, something of that sort. So you may say, okay, that's the objective that I have, that's the reason why I want to network. But you need to have some kind of broad outcome that you're looking for. Otherwise, that's going to be difficult. So pause the video here, note down your reasons for networking, be as specific as you can, right? Like, say, to get a new job, or to bring investors on board, or a customer on board, or whatever it is, and put down at least two reasons here. And of course, pause the video here, write down your reasons, and when you're doing your live coaching class, ensure that you take your two reasons and have a discussion there with your coach on what are your specific reasons for networking. Right now, after you're done with that, after you've done identifying your broad goals, identify who you want to connect with based on that, right? If you're not clear on why you're networking, then you won't know who to network with. And once you know your networking goal, identify stakeholders who can help you achieve them. These can be existing networks or contacts you want to connect with, right? And like we said, most of it will happen in your existing network, but in a certain situation you may have to go beyond your existing network, right? And that would always be my level 2 of doing it. Networks need not always be professional contacts. We've discussed this: your family members, your neighbors, your friends, your school college mates, etc. All can be a part of one's network, right? Now, who do you want to connect with? Create a list of probably 10 to 20 contacts, depending on the amount of time that you have. You create your own list of saying that, you know what, I realize that these are the 5 to 10 or whatever, 15, 20, whatever. You put that figure down, right? These are the relationships that I need to nurture, right? And these are some new relationships, right? New category of relationships that I need to make, right? So I would spend more of my energy around nurturing, and then you could say, okay, there are some which would need to go beyond my existing network. Okay, and what is your degree of separation? So there's a very nice quote, that very nice thought, that says everybody is even the president of United States, USA, or the president of Microsoft and Facebook is at a 6 degree of separation, right? Now, what is 6 degree of separation? Please read up on this a little more. But for example, okay, this is me, SK, and this is Arunima Kamat, right? And Arunima Kamat may have some friend that I don't know. Let's call that friend XYZ. This is Arunima's friend. So she's at a, she's my first degree of contact, she's my second degree of contact, right? And you will find this on LinkedIn, right? They show this all the time, that you are connected, you are 1 degree separated to that person, right? And if you know, for example, if I want to speak to investors, right, if I want to speak to potential investors or strategic partnerships that I want to do, I could reach out to the I could reach out. This is me, SK. Now I want to get investors. I could reach out to the investors directly, and I should do that if I want that. But I could also look at probably some connect of mine, XYZ, that would know, that can then introduce me to this person, right, to potential investors. So I need to try both ways if I need that, right, to get in touch with them directly, plus to do it through this way. Okay, so create a list of people that from today onwards, depending on what your goal is, you want to kind of nurture relationships, or you want to like add fresh people onto your list. So do that. um, yeah, so this is the exercise. Go back to your defined networking goals, identify who you need to connect or network with in order to achieve your goal, right? And like we said, it's not always so straight jacketed where you say, oh, this is my goal and now I'm going to network with this person and this person is going to help me with that goal. It's never going to be so straight jacketed. That's not the way life works. But just having a broad idea will always help you, and it'll help you get started with this whole thing. Now, let's go into nurturing your existing relationships. Right now, there are two parts to this which we're going to talk about, and a lot of the points that we're going to share after this will apply both to rapport building and building networks within your organizations, and maintaining relationships with other stakeholders, outside your organization, right? So these points will apply to both situations. Now, especially if you work, this is in a post COVID world where you start going to office again. If you work for a fairly large company, leverage shared spaces, right? Engage in conversation and small talk with people beyond your immediate team in shared spaces such as the hallway, the break room, elevators, virtual calls. Often kind of the best place to do this is the canteen area, or the cafeteria, or where the coffee machine or the water machine is, right? When people go there. So these are the common areas which are the most common. Or if there is some kind of meeting that's supposed to happen, and two of you all land slightly early for that meeting, that's the time that you could probably engage in conversation and small talk. um, be friendly, smile, and make contact with your colleagues as you pass them. Many of us don't realize how stern or grumpy we look while we're going about doing our daily business, right? So this is something which is like just extremely important to do. A man without a smiling face must not open shop, right? So just in your own office, when you're passing by, just a good practice, your default facial expression should be a positive one. Smile at people if you know that they're your colleagues. Very often they won't smile back at you to start with, because I've told you about this. In India, we're very kind of very suspicious. We don't have a practice of really smiling at our colleagues, right? In most other parts in the West, you just do that by default, but we don't do that. We're very scared for some reason, right? So if you're going to pass by your colleagues, start by smiling. The first few times they may not smile back at you, right? But then 9 out of 10 people, if you start doing this, they will smile back at you. And the minute that starts happening, you can then start making conversation with them. When you meet them in a common space, if you've just, while passing by, just said a hello and smiled, right? Or if you see somebody in a lift every day, just say hello and smile, right? That's about it, because you guys work together in an office, and that could be the start of a brand new relationship. And god knows how that relationship is going to help you, right? Because although we spoke about making a goal and listing out people that can in turn connect to that, we also mentioned that there's a whole lot of serendipity, right? This person who's in your office, you meet him, you start talking to him, god knows how he's going to help you, right? And we were discussing the serendipitous nature and what's the luck factor that is involved in the entire topic of networking. And Arunima and myself, we spoke about our office to start with, right? Because we close to 70-75 people, so we have an HR team that had some, I think 4 or 5 people in that HR team. Now, let's assume that a certain person in my office thought that, what do I have to do with this HR person? Why should I go about building relationships? These HR people are useless, right? So why should I go about building relationships with these HR people, or be nice with them, right? And sure, as it happens that while both of these people are at work better, this HR person is of no use. And then let's assume that this HR person quits work better and goes and starts working in another organization, right? Organization ABC. And now this other person who's a stupid person, okay, and that's why he doesn't want to really build relationships with anyone. And then he also does a terrible job at work better, so that he's fired off his job. Now he needs a job, right? And maybe this person is working at company ABC, which is a company that this person may want to work at, right? Now this person is joined as HR there, right? Now this person had gone about building great relationship here. This person, when they went to ABC, would probably look at helping this person out. But if this person didn't build a relationship with HR, saying, oh, what help, what is this person going to do, how is she going to be of some help to me, and then this situation which happened that you couldn't have predicted earlier on, you're not going to be able to make use of it. And that's why, like I said, there's so much of luck, gamble, as Arunima called it, right? But there's just, go about building relationships with one and all. Go about trying to help as many people as possible. You may not know immediately what's going to come out of it, but that's the way life rolls, right? You don't know what will come out of it, but in some way or the other you'll get something back. If you're a believer of karma, okay, I'm sure you'd know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not saying I believe in karma, but I'm just saying that if you believe in karma, this is something that will play out according to that. And by the way, I do believe in karma, just in a slightly different format, right? So yeah, in your office space, best place to build relationships there, best kind of time to use is where you leverage the shared spaces which are there. Ensure that when you're in office, you smile, make eye contact, don't look grumpy. Even if your colleagues don't smile back at you for a couple of times, that's okay. By the third or fourth time that you do that, they will start smiling back. And then if you have that one 10 to 20% that just don't smile back at you, then you can stop smiling at them, right? Now take advantage of your lunch break, eat in the common break room instead of at your desk. right? So if you want to network, that's what you need to do. Ask someone if you can sit with them and then strike up a conversation with them, right? It's a safer thing to do at a cafeteria. All this is in a post-COVID world. I'm sure in a post-COVID world, we'll be dying to meet people. I think that we will, right? So networking will become all the more better there. Okay, now after you've done that, show curiosity in others, right? Show genuine curiosity for the work and goal of others. Ask people what has their attention these days, what they're working on, and how you can help them be successful, right? You may not always be able to do this part of, how you can help them, but just kind of be curious, right? If you meet somebody at a cafeteria, you're having coffee with them, ask them, so what are you working on, right? If somebody's part of your office, you can definitely ask them that. And if it's confidential, maybe they won't tell you, but maybe they're dying to talk about their work, and they'll say, oh, these are the things that I'm working on. And you'll say, oh, great, if that's what you're working on, you can share what you're working on. And if there is anything that is there where you can kind of add value or help them out, you can do that as well. Now the next time that you meet that person, care to ask them, right? Care to ask them, say, how's that project going, right? And if you genuinely listen out of real interest, you'll remember. You won't even have to be reminded of it, because when we genuinely pay attention in conversations, they stick in our head much longer. And if you ask that person the next time, saying, hey, how's that project going that you told me about, they'd get so excited and feel so good. And then they'll be like, oh, it's such a nice person, this person cares about me, they care to ask. And that's how your relationships get built, that's how your network gets built, right? um, Offer constructive feedback to help them get better and develop their skills, right? If possible, offer them some feedback in some area which you think you can add value. And again, like, let's go back to this word of thing. Networking is nothing but building relationships. Building relationships is nothing but trying to help people in some way or the other. When you try to do that, they try to help you back, right? And the other principle, of course, if you want to build relationships, be likable. That's it. And if you do these two things, you're there. Right now, I have to kind of I have to tell you about this because this is supremely important, right? Just for y'all to understand the importance of networking. While I say that I'm average at networking, because I know there are so many things that I could do that I don't. When I quit my job, right? When I used to work at L'Oreal as a brand manager, I had a very good job. I was doing very well there. And then I decided to start a travel portal. That was the first business I decided to do, called triptogoa.com. And the first person to give me business, because I didn't know anything about travel, right? But the first person to give me business was a vendor of mine at L'Oreal, right? This is a person that would you know do media buying for us. And she was getting married and she wanted to go for a honeymoon in Goa. And she called me and I'm like, oh, I just quit. This was my last day and this is what I'm going to start. She said, you know what? I want to go for my honeymoon to Goa. Can you help me out? I'm like, sure, I'll help you out. It's my business to help you out now. So what can I do? So that was my first piece of business, right? And it came from my immediate network, because when I would deal with her on a day-to-day basis, I would just be nice to her, and she would be nice to me. I would try to help her out even then, and that's my first piece of business. My first piece of corporate business, again, was from an existing network that I had at L'Oreal, right? And how did that happen? We just struck an amazing conversation about something, where I tried to help him, right? And I helped him in some way without knowing that someday I'm going to start a travel portal and he may come back to help me. And he quit L'Oreal and then I quit L'Oreal, and then he knew, I think, of social media or something like that, that I'd started this new venture and he had something to do in Goa. And he's like, hey, you know what, I can give you this piece of business, would you like to take it? I'm like, yeah, hell yes, I want to take it, right? So give me that business. And the first, my start was basically through the network that I had. And again, simple principles, right, of what had to be done. um, when others show an interest and understanding in your work, take the time to share what you can, right? So a lot of people may not be interested in your work, but certain people will show interest when you meet them. So please share about your work, because that in a way is helping them in a small way. Right now, Point C, attend social work events. Don't sit out of company parties, get togethers, offsites, and other social events. This is when you can get to know people personally, as they are more likely to talk about non-work topics in informal settings, right? So yeah, so a lot of people say, I don't want to go for this party, I don't want to know. And I'm not talking about attending every party that is thrown, or every get together that is there, but don't be the kind of person that sits out of everything, right, at your office. That's not going to help you in any way, right? Because that's when you really build solid relationships with people, because your guards are down, right? Use these events as an opportunity to socialize with colleagues you don't know, or people from other departments. Consider, if you have time, volunteering to help out with arranging of such events, if you have the time and space, right? So even if you can't go this far, at least go for these kind of gatherings that are there, right? Sometimes it could just be a training, for that matter. Sometimes it could just be a company meeting, for that matter, right? So don't be a outcast, don't be a total recluse. That's no way to network, right? Now, the other thing, welcome newcomers in your office. Make an effort to introduce yourself to newcomers. You could also offer to go for coffee or tea break. Think of a few simple and helpful tips to give a new person when you meet them. For example, parking tips from the office lots. Let them know that you're available to help and open to questions they may have. Our tendency typically of dealing with any kind of newcomers, whether they're junior newcomers or lateral hires, slightly senior, is in a way to bully them. We go back to our college ragging days, right? So we don't bully them, but we're not particularly friendly with them. And anybody that's new in a certain setup always has certain butterflies in their stomach, right? They're always thinking, oh, this is a new office, new people, and they're kind of feeling a little shy, out of place. And just remember, anybody that helps them out during that time where they're shy, feeling out of place, don't know anyone, they always remember that person, right? That, oh, when I came to office, this person helped me out the most. And that person becomes a very strong part of your network, right? While they may be new to your office, remember that they also may have valuable experiences. Ask them about their background. You can discover common interests, or they may have an expertise in an area you want to learn about, right? So yeah, that's something that you can do. Two very nice quotes, right? So wisdom is knowing how much you don't know, right? That's the best definition of wisdom I've found so far. Wisdom is knowing how much you don't know. And there's another nice quote that says, everybody can teach you something, right? Everybody knows something that you don't, right? Everybody can teach you something, and everybody knows something that you don't. So if you enter most conversations with that mindset of saying that, oh, this person is a newcomer, it could be a newcomer who's very junior, who can probably teach you about trends that are happening, or if it's a lateral hire, somebody with experience, maybe they have an expertise in a certain area and they can help out there, right? So yeah, newcomers is a very nice place to start networking in your office in a post COVID world, right? Yes, Arunima.
I have two examples here to share.
Yes.
So one, like you said, right? If you can give them a helpful tip, they kind of remember that. And I that happened to me because when I joined Work Better, we have a colleague, Clement,
Mhm.
who was the first, who told me how different ways to get to work
Yeah.
from where I live.
Yeah.
And this 3 years now down the line, and he's like my go-to person now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that I can depend on him for any
Yeah.
resources that I
Yeah.
require.
Yeah.
And he's a very strong, important part of my network.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it started all from that because I was new. A lot of people didn't talk to me
Yeah.
because of my, I don't know for whatever reason. But
Yeah.
he volunteered to kind of help me out. Oh, this is where you can order food from, and this is how you
Yeah.
can come to work. This is the bus
Yeah.
you can take.
Yeah.
And that led to such a great relationship now.
Correct.
Um,
Absolutely. And like you said, he's part of your network and you're part of his network,
yes,
right? And I'm
correct,
sure if Clement were to ask you for something, you'd be very unlikely to say no to him, right? If he's in
absolutely.
need of anything. And that's just what he does brilliantly. He's a great relationship builder, networker, and that's exactly what you need to do, right? Yeah, so this is another way to go about networking, which is very important. Celebrate others' wins. When someone achieves something, earns a promotion, wins a big client deal, gets married, or is celebrating an important event, take out the time and congratulate them, right? Send out a congratulatory email or message, call, wish them in person, appreciate them in public if possible. But this is something which is so important, right? So even on LinkedIn, for that matter, if you see that somebody's got a promotion or somebody is put their title change or something there, ensure that you go out to congratulate them, right? If somebody's completed their work anniversary and if you see that on LinkedIn, or if it's put on some office group, ensure that you go out and congratulate them on their work anniversary. Somebody you know has done very well on a certain project, take the effort to do that, right? Don't be lazy around these things. And if you go about doing that, again, that's a great way of nurturing your existing network. Okay, now we've spoken about help and assistance literally through and through, right? So let's kind of discuss this in a little more detail. If you know a stakeholder is facing a problem, ask them how you can help. Don't wait for them to come to you. Proactively offer hands-on assistance, right? Is this always possible? No. Can you do it when possible? Yes, that's what we mean, right? Please do it when possible. Sometimes it's not, you may not have a lot of time to help people, but you can help them with very little time, right? By giving them a certain piece of advice or putting them on to the right person, right? But if you see a person's a problem, be the one to help them out. You will, a friend in need is a friend indeed, right? So if you become that person to them, that's where you build a very strong network immediately. Share information that will benefit the stakeholder. For an example, an article that may interest, that may be of interest to a person, right? This is something I do a lot, right? So I'm happy that like I actually put this into action with most of my friends, whether it's a Instagram post that I see or an article that I read or a book that I'm reading. If I find something which is beneficial to them, I will take the time to take a picture or send the article across to them, and I'll tell them, hey, this is something that will help you. I have a friend that's in real estate, and every time I come across something which is a beautifully designed house or a beautifully designed building, I'll make it a point to send it to him and say, found something which is interesting, and now he knows I don't even need to add that note. And in that small way, I try to offer my help or assistance to them, right? So that's me building my network in some way or nurturing the relationship. Help someone they care about, for example, speaking to a stakeholder's nephew who's interested in the field that you work in, right? So that often has such huge benefits if you help somebody that they care about. It's literally that simple. Introduce them to your contacts where possible. So this is again something that I think a couple of these things I do a lot, right? Introduce them to contacts. So my IT vendor, the person that designs our websites and a lot of my IT work, I've been working with him for literally 15 years, right? And the amount of work that I have given him, because I know that he's a reliable vendor. So every time somebody from my network asks me anything related to IT, I'm like, hey, you know what? You need to work with this person. I'm going to put you onto with this person right away. Now, this person is happy because he's done a good job for him, and this person is happy because he's gotten his business, right? Both of them have benefited from it. And now, every time I need something from this IT vendor, he'd always give me preferential treatment because he knows how much I've tried to help him by introducing him to different people, right? Now, I'm not going out of my way to do it, but every time I know I know that somebody has a certain requirement, I'll ensure that I put them onto somebody that is reliable, and that is such a way to benefit the two of them and in turn yourself in the long run, right? Helping others triggers the principle of reciprocity in them. They will be inclined to offer you their assistance when you need it to repay the debt in some way which is there, right? So the principle of reciprocity means that if I do something for you, 8 out of 10 people are likely to do something back for you, right? It's That's the way human beings are designed. That's the way we are. You look at your own life. If anybody's helped you out, you look for ways in which you can help them back, right? Now, um, keep in regular touch. This is something that I'm not that good at, I have to admit. Need to do this better. Okay. Schedule periodic calls and messages with your stakeholders. Share updates and ask how they're doing, right? As a matter of fact, although I'm not good at this, I think I've been relatively good at this during COVID, right? Because I've possibly had a little more time on my hand, and things have been kind of bad for everyone, or at least most people on in some form or the other. So I've been kind of doing this a lot more during COVID, where I'll check with people that I know on how they're doing, especially if I know somebody had COVID. I would check on them periodically as to how their health is keeping up, and this is people from my office, people from my family, and people from my extended network as well, right? So I don't do this otherwise. I've been doing this a lot more of late, and it's a very, very important part, keeping in touch, right? Wish them on special occasions such as birthdays or anniversaries or on major festivals. Ensure that you do this with all your customers or clients, right? If you know their birthdays, do it. And at least on major festivals, please ensure that you take the effort to message them or call them, depending on the equation, right? Now, this depends on who you are, what kind of work that you do. Go the extra mile by sending them a small gift on the above mentioned occasions. For example, sending flowers on birthdays, a box of sweets, or a gift. So this is more in, of course, the corporate gifting domain. Okay, but boy, does this work. It doesn't matter kind of what size of business that you run or what you do. It's so important, right? And I have to share the example of my boss here, my ex boss is the a CEO of the Diamonds Association, right? And she's of course a brilliant woman. And however much I like her and her husband, we probably don't get enough time to catch up because her schedule is crazy. My schedule is busy more often than not. So we don't get to meet up as much. But she will make sure that, like, once a year, I think on Diwali or New Year, she'll ensure that she'll send me a small gift from on behalf of her company, or on a personal level. She will ensure that she does that with all her contacts. And right, that's such a lovely gesture that I'm like, oh, she still thinks of me in some way. And that's such a lovely gesture to nurture her relationships, and even those that she doesn't manage to stay in touch with on a regular basis, right? So that's something which is nice. I had another kind of friend of mine that would do this brilliantly. He would go for a lot of these international conferences, and how he would use the whole kind of gift thing, right? He would and every time he went for a conference, and if he struck a good rapport with somebody at that conference, he would give them a small and a beautiful idol of Ganesha, right? Because he was a big Ganesh bhakt, right? And he would like to talk about Ganesh, and and all the things that he stands for. So every time he kind of struck a conversation with somebody, he had small idols of Ganesha because he loved Ganesha so much, and he would give them those idols, saying that, and he would give them that background, and he would say that, keep it in your kind of office, and it will bring you good luck, or keep it in some place that you'd like it, and it's going to bring you some good luck. And that became such a beautiful topic for them to converse on, because he could tell them so much of Ganesha, which is his area of interest. And it would kind of kick in the principle of reciprocity, where they'd always remember him in some way. And of course, if he needed something at some point of time, he could always go and ask them for it, right? So doing this in some small way or the other kind of has a big impact on people. The way I typically tend to do this with my network is I'll gift people books, right? So if I like a certain book, I'll be like, okay, who in my network would like this book as well, and then I'll send a copy of that book across to them. Again, I don't do it as often as I should be, but yeah, that's something which is good, right? So keeping in touch helps you stay on the stakeholders radar. It also shows them that you value the relationship, right? So this is something which is good. Now, pause the lecture here and think of 3 to 5 things that you will start doing differently when it comes to nurturing your existing network. Make a note of what your 3 to 5 takeaways are, and ensure that you take them to your coach for the discussion that you're going to have with him on this topic. Now, expanding your network. Now, networking at events. Okay. Now, when we're talking about networking at events, what do we mean, right? Typically the networking events are conferences that happen, right? So conferences that happen on your in your area of work. Okay, so for example, if you're in construction, you could be a part of CREDI, which is the largest association for construction. Now, CREDI has a lot of events that will happen, right? Some will be local, some will be national, some will be international. And those are the events at which you can go and network with different people. So that's what I'm talking about. The same thing. If you're an architect, it'll be the same thing. If you're a doctor, it's the same thing. If you're in any business, if you're in learning and development, as I have, there are so many events that are there, and those are the conferences that we're talking about, right? So if you want to network better, one of the things that I would suggest that you do is literally kind of, you may pause the video right now and do it, or do it later, is go about identifying what are the events in your space and your sphere of work, that you need to go and attend, right? Because they will of course be the knowledge gain that will happen when you go for such events. There's also a lot of fun, I'm sure, when you go for such events, and that's a great way to grow your network. I know for sure my partner at work, who also happens to be my wife, she's reasonably good at networking. So if there is any such conference that happens, she goes for it, and she's built such a strong network of people from there, that has helped us so much in business, in one sphere or the other. It has gone about helping us, and it's just literally she going for these events that has led to so many positives that have happened in our business, right? And if she didn't, those positives possibly wouldn't happen, right? So there's a learning angle there, then there's also the meeting of people angle there, right? Now, so at these networking events, you will come across two types of people. So one is people that you've met before and want to strengthen your relationship with. These are colleagues or people that you've met at previous events, and acquaintances, right, from your industry. So Ruchira would often tell me that after she went for a couple of these events, the you realize that it's the same industry, right? So then you'd go for the third or fourth event, and you'll start recognizing people there. You'll start knowing people from that industry, and then you have people to kind of network with there that you've met previously, so that you know. And with such people, your objective could be to find ways to talk to them more often, such as setting up a monthly catch up. If you can do that, great. And also, by the way, this people that you know already, you need to, if you want to get good at conversational skills, ladies and gentlemen, you know that there is a whole topic on conversational skills that you need to attend the class and do the coaching on the conversational skills topic. That's something that will help you. It's a lovely class that we've created. So on how to do that, we're not getting into that in this class, right? That's a separate class altogether. So if that's part of your pack, great. If it's not, get that as an add-on, right? Now, the second thing is, at these networking events, one is the bunch of people that you know already there, and the second one is strangers or people you want to meet. For example, leaders at work, members of a community you want to be involved in, or influencers in your niche. So somebody at that place where you want to know them. With people you're meeting for the first time, focus on making a great impression, right? So that's what you want to do, with people there at these networking events that you want to meet. Now, what are some general tips at network on networking at events? So know your elevator pitch. I don't know whether you know what an elevator pitch is, but an elevator pitch is basically, the word comes from saying that if you're in an elevator with somebody, and if you have 20 to 25 seconds to tell them about yourself or your company, what would you tell them, right? And prepare a brief professional introduction for yourself, 2 or 3 lines about who you are and what you do. Include your first and last name, your company industry, and a key detail about yourself, something that you value, your focus in the workplace, or the reason why you're attending the event. If you want, know the points you want to share, don't memorize your introduction, right? So if I were to go for an event and if I had to introduce myself, I would just say I'm Swapnil Kamat. I'm the founder and CEO of Work Better Training, which is a company that trains in soft skills, and we're considered as one of India's best and one of India's biggest companies that does training on soft skills for corporates or for executives. That's what we do, right? So that's all I'd say about myself, when I have to get to it. And then more often than not, somebody will say, oh, so tell me more about, so what kind of training is soft skills, what does it include? And then I can go about giving the details. But that's all I'd say about myself. So I'd say, hi again, let me just repeat it. I'd say, hi, my name is Swapnil Kamat. I'm the founder and CEO of Work Better Training. Work Better Training is a company that trains people in soft skills, and we train some of India's topmost companies in these subjects, right? So that's what we end up doing, right? So that would be my elevator pitch to somebody if I were to go in. So you decide what yours is: your first name, last name, your company, some key detail about yourself, something that you value, something that you focus at the workplace. So that would depend on what you do essentially, right? um, and of course, depending on the event, I would kind of probably possibly tell them about my reason for attending this event, right? That would depend on the event that I'm going for. Right now, second, research about the event and the attendees, right? Find out who will be speaking, and if possible, the key stakeholders who will be attending. This is a master tip from people that attend a lot of networking events, right? This is something that my wife taught me, and she said it works like magic. She said very often at a networking event, you'd want to meet, for a want of better word, important people, right? In her world, she wanted to meet potential customers, right? That was one area. Number two, she'd want to meet potential investors or kind of strategic partners in some way, right? So that's another reason why she would attend it. And number three, she would attend it to learn something from the conference itself. And number four, she'd attended for prospective employees, right? To hire good people if she met anybody there. So she had like a broad 4-point agenda for why she would go for these conferencing events. So we started off with that, right? For any kind of networking, whether it's macro or micro, you need to know what your objective is. So these were her 4 objectives. Now, typically, people that were invited to speak at such events would be important stakeholders that would help in one of these 4 areas. And once she knew that she was going for a certain event, she would write to them on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, I'm attending this event. I saw that you're going to be attending or speaking for this too. When I'm there, I'd love to quickly have a word and learn a little more about what your company or whatever," right? So she sent that message to them, and she would say that people that would attend or speak would find that so useful, and then they would reply to them saying, "Sure, let's catch up during that time," right? And then she would end up, not in all cases but in a lot of cases, end up meeting these people, and that would be highly productive for her, right? So she would not just go for an event, but she'd first see who are all the people attending, who are all the people speaking, write to them, kind of set up in a way meetings with them there, but they're not really formal meetings, but just saying, "Hey, I'll meet you there." And then going up to those people would be so much easier than if you hadn't sent that message before. And if you just have to randomly go and meet somebody, it's far more difficult than when you send a message and set it up in some way, right? And if you exchange numbers over LinkedIn, that's great. So you can just call the person there and then meet up with them, and that could lead to something positive, right? So this is like a literally like a pro tip. You should do this if you're going to be attending a lot of networking events, right? um, yeah, some other tips for you: carry enough business cards, place your business cards where you can access them quickly, such as your right pocket or an outside pocket of your purse, so that you won't have to search and fumble for it, right? So yeah, this is a small tip but an important one. I typically carry my cards in my wallet, right? And now if I meet somebody to remove my wallet, then find that in it and then give it to him, it's such a painful thing, right? So if I know I'm going for a meeting or a conference, I take those cards and keep them in my pocket here. So as soon as I'm done with the discussion, it's so easy for me to just pick it out and then like give my card to that person. And of course, if my objective is to network, I need to at least do these small things right. Okay, dress in a smart and professional attire. I think that's very, very important. First impressions often are the last impressions with people. So do that well. Don't stand by yourself and expect people to come and speak to you. Approach others, introduce yourself, and initiate a conversation. So again, this is kind of awkward for a lot of people. So we'll give you a few tips of what you can do around this thing. But that's why the doing your work before the event and sending those messages to people on LinkedIn there and then connecting, that is of so much help, right? To you, if you're attending a certain event, for example, it always makes good sense for you to put that up on your LinkedIn or on your Facebook or on your social media, not to show off that you're there at a certain event, but if there's another person in your network that's there as well, then you can quickly connect with that person there and speak to them there, right? So you need to do anything to avoid the awkwardness in a way of just standing alone and then having to go and do cold introductions to people. That's never easy, irrespective of what tip you get. Right, look at the other person's name tag. He may mention the company they work for, their role in the as an organization, which will give you the opportunity to break the ice and have something to talk about, right? So yeah, if there is a name tag kind of setting in that event, you wear your name tag, let somebody else wear name tag. It just becomes more easier for you to break ice and talk to them. Right, this is very interesting. Choose an advantageous location at that event. Avoid places that you might be in the way of traffic, such as near the doors. Okay. Some good locations for speaking to people could be standing in the line for food, drinks, or sitting at a table to eat. Okay, this may seem strange, but it is true, right? It's easy to talk to people when, say, if you're in a line to get a coffee or a drink or some food, right? Um, you're both there, you can talk to people there, right? So Ruchira would have this thing, because she initially, when she went for, Ruchira is my wife and my partner, and when she went for the first few, she'd find it very awkward to talk to people, and then she said, she said the best place to network with people is in the women's toilet. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, when somebody is there in the women's toilet, and if you see that they're wearing a nice dress, and if I compliment them saying, hey, that's a nice dress, because everybody has their guards a little down, because that's a slightly informal, formal looking place, and if you say, hey, you're wearing a nice dress, and she's like, hey, thank you very much, and then you start talking to them, and that's so much more easier than being outside and then having to talk to a person from scratch there, right? Because you're standing next to each other at the basin, it's so much easier to talk to them. And I found that very, very funny, but she said it works like magic. So that's another kind of tip for you all, right? If you know somebody at the event, ask them to introduce you to their contacts or people that they know, right? So if you know somebody at the event, tell them that, hey, I'm here for this purpose, so can you help me out with this purpose that I'm here for? And be very direct with that, otherwise you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time in a way, right? And this last step is very, very important. Send an email or LinkedIn message no later than 24 hours after the event. A lot of people don't do this, and then the entire effort of going for an event like this, networking, is not going to help if you don't send the message after that. Your note should remind them about the conversation that you had and express your gratitude for meeting them. Plan to follow up every week with your new connections, right? This depends on what you want, really, but yeah, so ensure that you mail this. I think this part is so important, and I know that most people miss out on this part, right? So if you kind of collect cards, ensure that you keep them carefully, ensure that you make the time the next day to write the people where you spoke to them about whatever business that you want. If you need to set up follow-up meetings with them, do that as soon as possible when it's fresh. That's the best time to do it, right? For a person. Okay. Now, exercise for you, exactly like I did my elevator pitch, which is the quick pitch about myself. Do a short professional introduction of yourself. You will use this to introduce yourself to the coach during the live coaching session, as if you're meeting somebody at a conference for the first time, right? So, what is that thing that you would say to them within the first, like, it shouldn't take more than probably anything from 15 to 30 seconds, is what your introduction could be. That really tells the person what you're doing, right? Yeah, so pause the video here and kind of work that out, or write it down and actually do it when you get to your coach. Now, networking on social media is very important, and we have a few things that we're going to discuss here, but we have another class as well, which is a class on perception management, right? So classes which are connected to this, by the way, we have a whole class topic on perception management. I've already told you about conversational skills. That is very, very important. I hope you've attended something on grooming and etiquette. That is also connected. Body language and speaking with impact. That's connected. Listening skills. Look at the amount of things that are connected to these topics, and that's why I said I hope you're doing this later on and attended a lot of these classes that can help, right? We have a session on etiquette and professionalism that could help you as well. Yes, Arunima, what do you want to discuss?
Uh, y- yes.
Yes, what? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, just to mention that our conversational skills, there's a huge chunk on how to actually start conversations, like as we talked about, sort of opening a cold conversation. So,
Yeah.
though it can get awkward, there are helpful tips, and I think it will be really
Yeah.
beneficial if the coaches attend that session.
Correct. So the conversational skills, we what we try to do as far as possible in these sessions is not repeat things, right? Try to keep stuff mutually exclusive. So in the conversational skills class, we have a lot of tips, like Arunima mentioned, on how to start a cold conversation even at an event or at in any place. So please attend that, because we don't want to cover it here and there, right? So yeah, okay. Networking on social media, we're only going to talk about LinkedIn here and not like other forums like Instagram and Facebook, because that's the main forum as far as business networking is concerned. Um, Sending a connect request, share the reason you're connecting. So how do you share a connect request on LinkedIn, right? That's what we're discussing here. How do you share a connect request? Don't just share the default "I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn" invitation, right? That's not the best way to connect with people on LinkedIn. Mention why you are connecting with the individual, right? Like, for example, if you just finished an interview, maybe you didn't get that job, but you still want to connect with the HR person, you can write a message saying, "Thank you for the interview opportunity. I would love to be considered for future positions that come up and have you as a professional connection," right? So this is a much better message to send to that person that you interviewed with than to just send them this message, right? You're much more likelier for them to accept your request here than in the first case, right? Um, yes, if you have a mutual acquaintance, mention that in your message. I'd like to It's easier to start an introduction with the help of a mutual acquaintance. So you can send a message saying, "I'm a former colleague of Vishal Prabhu who told me a lot about you and your work. I'm considering a position at 123 company. Would you mind if I ask you some questions related to your experience with the application and interview process?" Right? So if you bring up a former colleague that both of you all have, or a mutual acquaintance, that's another way in which you're likely to get a response, likely to get what you want from that, right? Um, or share something that you have in common while sending the connect request. Let the person know anything that you may have in common. This will help you in striking an instant bond. For example, people also want to know how you know them or found them. For example, I'm a member of XYZ group on LinkedIn, but I also saw you. So that's a good way to connect with them. If there are some things that you have in common, which is like your educational background or work background, that's another way in which you can get in touch with them. So if I worked at L'Oreal, even if I don't know this person, if they're at L'Oreal, I can just kind of send them a message saying, "Hey, you know what? I used to be at L'Oreal, but I haven't met you, and I'd like to connect with you for this reason," right? So that's something which is likely to get you an accept and for you to connect with that person. Now, the class. Okay, so before we get to this, the class that we have on perception management talks a lot about what you can do on social media, especially on LinkedIn, to build your own brand, right? Or build a positive perception about you. So that we have covered there. We don't have that covered here, because if you're going to take networking seriously, I'm assuming you're going to take how to build your own brand and perception management seriously as well. So that's the class that will really help there, and we haven't covered that here. Okay. Now, find your exercises. Find 3 people you want to connect with on LinkedIn. Send a connect request to these 3 stakeholders while customizing your request to for each one. Take a picture snapshot of each request. You will be asked to show these to your coach during your live coaching session, right? And if you're not on LinkedIn, and if you're talking about the subject of business networking, something is wrong. So you can pause the video here and do it, or you can do it later, but ensure that before your coaching class, you get onto LinkedIn if you're not on LinkedIn. And if you're on LinkedIn, right, connect with 3 new people and send the message as we've recommended that you send it across to them, right? So that's something which is important. Now, other tips, of course, look at their profiles and identify topics that you share in common. We just discussed this. You can use them as conversational starters. and comment on or reshare their posts and updates, right? So, for example, congratulations on a recent awards or great article. I found it very insightful. It informs the person that you, in the individual, you admire their work, making it easier for you to get their attention and find a reason to connect with you, right? Now, you may not realize the importance of this thing, right? If somebody puts up a post on LinkedIn sharing some achievement of theirs, they're always observing as to who's liking their post and who's commenting on their post. So if you think that they're not observing that, you're mistaken, right? Most people would do that because they're excited about that thing that they shared, right? So they want to see who congratulated them. Now, of course, if you're going to take your networking seriously, leave a message for a person that say did something good, and then if he sees your name often, that will really help. If the person shares something which is interesting, you can reshare it, right? And you don't need to just reshare it for the sake of doing it. If it's a boatload of crap or it's like stupid stuff, you don't need to reshare it. But if a person has shared something good, reshare it, right? And then that person will start appreciating that. So these are some of the other things that you can do. Okay, so yes, we've come to the end of the session on building your network. So you can pause here and make a note of your 5 biggest takeaways from this session. You will be expected to explain your takeaways and summarize the content of this lecture. By the way, the reason why I mentioned this earlier, but let me mention this again. The reason why we ask you to summarize the content is number one, so that you attend these lectures and the knowledge acquisition happens here, and the live coaching sessions can only be used for practice and practice only, and for discussions that you want to have. And the number two reason why we make you summarize is because the best way to learn is to try to teach. So the minute you start talking about these things, automatically you get an understanding of whether you have understood them well enough or not, right? So that tends to happen with it, right? So yep, that's the end of the session. Before I end, Arunima, do you have any questions, any comments that you'd like to make?
No, none, nothing from my end.
Nothing from your end. Okay. So before we kind of end this session, I'd just like to go back to something that we said at the start, which is do not have any stigmas around networking. Do not get scared of networking. Networking is simply building and building relationships which are mutually beneficial to you and to the other side, right? So that's what you need to do, and I can assure you that doing that is going to help you professionally for sure, and sometimes they help you personally as well, right? People even in your business network can be of great help to you on the personal side, right? So whether it's getting a promotion, getting great opportunities at the workplace, right? Because if you network well within your organization, you could have great opportunities that come up from there, whether it's finding investors, whether it's looking for business partners, whether it's getting business. In all situations, you need to network. To learn, you need to network, right? Because so much of the learning is often peer-to-peer learning, just learning that happens through good and interesting conversations. So for each one of these things, ladies and gentlemen, it's important that you know how to network. You don't need to do anything wildly different. You just need to understand what networking is, and that, in a way, is half the battle won. Thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying the communication coaching program. We are enjoying researching the best of the best material for you and doing our very best to ensure that you get better at communicating. Okay, bye bye. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.